Hey everyone, you're tuned into InfoQuench with Jeff.
And Amy. Join us as we talk about anything.
And everything.
All the stuff that makes life interesting.
So let's get to it. Hey everybody, and welcome to InfoQuench. I'm your host, Jeff.
And I'm Amy, and on this episode, we are going to be decoding body language.
Decoding body language.
Yes.
It's a language that we all have.
It is.
In one way or another.
If we have bodies, we have body language.
Yeah, I guess those without bodies have no body language.
Well, even facial expressions, are a part of body language too. And
absolutely. Something we never really think about, though, is body language. It's just sort of there with us.
I think about it all the time.
How come?
I don't know. I find it fascinating. I think I've seen a lot of TED Talks on it, and I've heard people talk about, when you're doing public speaking, the sorts of things you should and shouldn't do. And
before we get started, I know there's one that is like across the board supposed to be translated as being like, standoffish, isn't it? And it's like standing there with your arms folded, right? I know you're probably going to get to it, aren't you?
We are. Yeah. That is one of the things we're going to talk about.
But that's the only real, aspect of body language that I feel is pretty much universal. Yeah, everybody sort of feels that when somebody does it.
That's a common one that people often reference as crossing the arms is giving us a message of being closed off.
Yeah.
Before we get into the content for this episode, though, I just want to say, thanks to everybody for listening and help spread the word. We've noticed a big jump in our downloads in the new year, and it's great. It's great to see. We do this as a hobby podcast.
Yeah, we literally walk around thinking we're superstars all day. Because of our downloads. No, thank you very much, everybody. Really, we do it because we're a husband and wife team, and we just love to do this. It's our creative outlet, but it's so nice that people actually listen.
I know the listening is a bonus.
Yeah, the listening is a bonus. We never really expected.
Keep spreading the word, people, and thank you so much.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to mention in the last episode, we talked a little bit about the alcohol experiment, and I wanted to share an awesome mocktail recipe that we came across. If you're doing dry January, or if it's just a night where you're
all the time,
or you're dry all the time, or a night where you just want a mocktail, this is a great way to get some veggies in too. So it just uses V8. We love Caesars. Jeff and I are both big Caesar lovers.
You love them a little bit more than I did.
Yes.
Like when we did drink them.
Yes.
But we don't drink them anymore. See, I'm doing I'm doing the dry.
Right,
January
I'm doing the full-fledged alcohol experiment with the book by Annie Grace, but Jeff's on board for dry January too.
Yeah.
So the V8 mocktail is, I guess, the healthy twist on a Caesar. So instead of Clamato juice, you use V8, and just a tablespoon. It's super easy recipe: tablespoon of lemon juice and a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce.
Yeah, Worcestershire sauce.
And then however much Tabasco you like. And I find the lemon juice gives it sort of thins the V8 out a little bit, so it's a little bit more like Clamato.
Do you recommend people do the salted top?
Yes, so I think the salted rim.
The salted rim
is.
I'm not really into that at all.
I know you're not, but I like it, and it makes it feel a little bit more mocktail-y.
Yeah. So
I just wanted to share that with our listeners if that's something you're into. Plus, you get a couple servings of veggies in, so there's that. All right, into body language.
Body language.
So I did research on a few different sites and articles and books and such to come up with this little compilation, and hopefully you'll find it interesting because I definitely did. According to Fremont College, body language actually makes up 60% of how we communicate. So learning to read all of these nonverbal cues is a really valuable asset to have in your arsenal of assets.
I know that investigators, FBI officials and stuff, they study this stuff. They when they're interrogating people, they're looking very closely at their body language to see which signals they're sending.
Right. So, if nothing else, maybe you'll take away from this episode how to fool the FBI during those interrogations.
How to fool the FBI.
Poker players, too.
Yes.
Huge thing. Having a tell. I can't play poker, but
that episode we watched, the 30 Rock, when he couldn't read the page. Remember?
Yes, that's right.
Anyway.
Yes, definitely a big thing in poker. So, the first off, I wanted to reference something that, when you're watching, and I do this with you. If we're watching something funny on TV, and I, a stand-up comedian or just I don't know, rom-com or something, I often, when I'm laughing, will look at you to see if you're laughing too. And this is actually a common tendency for people to do. So when people hear something funny in a group situation, they tend to look to the people that they feel closest to. So, pay attention to that if you're in, the next
really
time you're in a
noticed that, but
social
yeah,
setting. And if
you're right.
something funny comes up, sort of take a look at who's glancing at whom. And I think a lot of times, we do that even in our own living room. If something funny comes on, you kind of like, does that person think it's funny too?
It's funny, though, because when we watch programs, you are the one who laughs out loud, but I'm more of an inward laugher, if that's such a thing. I don't really laugh.
You mean as in non-laughing?
I'm not a big bellower. I laugh inside, and sometimes I chuckle, but I'm not.
As long as you're not crying inside, I'm happy.
No, I can't remember the last time I laughed so hard I cried.
I laugh out. I'm incredibly
I make you laugh.
laugher. This is why I have to turn away from them.
Crying almost every day.
I know.
Almost.
You make me cry every day. I have to turn away from the mic. I laugh so loud. I don't know what comes over me, but it's like...
You did it last
it's like a possession.
Podcast.
Let's talk about eyes.
Yeah, eyes.
I think eyes are even more important now because we are all wearing masks. So we really need to look to the eyes to read people a bit. So the inability to make direct eye contact can indicate a lot of things. It can be boredom, disinterest, or even deceit. Especially if someone looks away and to the side.
What about shyness?
And, so if somebody looks down, that'll often indicate that they're either nervous or submissive or shy. Mm-hmm. So the direction in which they look away definitely has some indication of what their emotions will be. Oh. I know I get a little uneasy when people can't make eye contact.
Me as well. Yeah, I do as well. It's an odd thing when somebody actually won't look you in the eye. But I mean, it's not necessarily a negative thing, though. It could just be like, a roadblock someone has.
Well, I take it personally.
Yeah, you take it personally.
I take everything personally.
Yeah.
No, but I think, a good part of communication is maintaining eye contact. You can also check for dilated pupils if you're close enough, but not during a pandemic. Don't get so close you can see people's pupils. Don't do that. But if somebody is responding favorably toward you, their pupils actually dilate. So if they've got great big pupils, it means that they are probably liking whatever you're putting out there.
Oh, wow.
It means that their cognitive effort is increasing and that they're really focused.
Or they're on acid.
Or they're on acid. Or they were just at the eye doctor and had drops put in.
Yeah.
So there can be other things.
Yeah.
But this one, I know Jeff and I have noticed before, that CNN reporters blink. Oh. Well, reporters in general, I guess. We just happen to watch a lot of CNN lately. But reporters in general blink an incredible amount. I don't know if we often thought maybe it's just dry in the studio or there's lights shining on them. But even people out in the field are blinking like crazy.
Yeah.
So take notice of this. They don't all do it, but a lot of them do.
I think it's just like a filler. Because usually when people are blinking a lot is when they're not saying anything. They're just waiting to talk.
You think they're trying to keep us interested by their blinking?
Yeah, they're like, I'm going to do some freestyle blinking here.
Well, blinking rate actually increases when people are thinking more or when they're stressed.
Yeah. Well, that's probably what they're doing. They're probably thinking because they can't have like dead air, right? So they have to fill every single moment with something profound because they're on CNN.
Just like us on our podcast.
That's right. That's what we do. That's what I'm doing right now.
Profound thoughts every second coming at you.
So they're constantly thinking. So when they're thinking, they're blinking. I mean, I think we all do it, really.
Well, and it can also indicate lying, which I guess if you're thinking, you're probably thinking about your lie. And particularly if you're touching your face and also blinking and touching around your eyes or your mouth, which don't do again. That's a great way to spread some viruses, but that can also indicate lying. This one I've noticed, particularly when people are, in a situation where they want to leave. So glancing at something can suggest a desire for that thing. So obviously, glancing at a person.
Or like a cheeseburger.
Or cheeseburger. But if someone glances at the door or the doorknob, that may indicate a desire to leave.
Yeah.
I think this one seems kind of obvious, and maybe we just pick up on it intuitively. But, it's just something. And if they have their actual hand on the doorknob, they're definitely looking to get out.
They're looking to get out.
Or if they've got their feet turned toward the door and they're like exiting, then they're
Or they
looking
don't
to leave the
even
situation.
really come in far from the door. They just come in and visit, and they just lean against the wall. And
I've been in
talk to you.
situations like that, though, before where I've tried to send that subtle message, like I'm done with the conversation, I'm
Oh,
making
yeah.
a move away.
People
And-
know it too. People,
Well, some people don't pick up on it.
yeah, but mostly, even if they don't want to agree that they're seeing it, like people know that that's what people are putting down. I think.
Okay.
I don't know.
If you're looking upward and to the right during conversation, it can indicate a lie is being told, and to the left means the person's telling the truth. I'm like, is that my left or their
What?
left?
That's-
But this is just, I
That's
guess,
all relative.
the idea is that if people look up to the right, they're using their imagination to concoct a story, and if they're looking to the left, they're using the left side of their brain and recalling an actual memory. So then that would be telling the truth.
So it's another interesting thing would be like if someone's telling a story and they're leaning right into you as they're telling the story. They're really engaged in telling the story. They want you to hear the story.
Right.
So I imagine that happens quite a lot. And then if you are on the receiving end and you're listening to the story, if you're like all sprawled back and like looking at the ceiling, you're not interested, right? Or you're yawning
Yes.
or whatever. But if you're leaning in as well, do you notice that happens a lot during parties where people are like, having a few drinks and they're just telling a story and everybody's, well, for me, usually it's because I can't hear what anybody.
Well, yes, I was going to
saying.
say in a loud
But-
environment, usually leaning in just so you can hear whatever they're saying.
But that's an interesting aspect of body language as well, is where your body is actually positioned when you're speaking.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you see that in meetings or
Yeah.
in interviews. When people are, if they're actually very interested in what's being said, they're going to lean in and show that interest. I think a lot of as we go through this, sort of picture the people doing it, and
I know that's what I'm
like,
doing too. Yeah.
If you're sort of, if you ask somebody to say, where were you yesterday, or what's on the grocery list, people do often look up and sort of start to think. And,
let me think.
and try to come
Yeah.
up with the.
Why
up with
though?
the answer.
Is that because the brain is upstairs? You never know.
I keep my brain upstairs.
You never know. It's funny though too. I just wanted to say before you go into the next thing is that it's funny too because what was I going to say? I forget. You got me to do something.
I'm sure
and
it
then
was
I
really
forgot.
funny. What I got you to do was to hit a key on the keyboard so I knew how long I've been talking.
Yeah. I remember now. So people who talk with their hands, say you're in like a board meeting and you're talking with your hands and you're going nuts and like, you're pointing, you're like blah, blah, blah,
Heavy gestures,
Yeah, like
pounding the table.
Are those more imaginative people? Like, are they more imaginative with like finding their words, or are they less imaginative in doing that?
I don't know. I feel like that's just really a personal style. I think
Yeah.
I think in public speaking, they'll often, people who do a lot of public speaking or presentations, they just get used to doing gestures because it does make the presentation a little more interesting to have the
Yeah.
visual stimulation along with your words. And then maybe that carries over into day to day. I'm not 100% sure. I'm very
I'd
much
say-
a gesturing type of person.
I think we all are, honestly, and we're very unaware of it. That's the thing. Like
Dexter isn't.
when you're doing.
Serial killers tend to keep their arms down by their sides.
Oh, is that
You ever
right?
you ever heard that?
I've never heard that.
If you ever see somebody walking and they're not really swinging their arms,
And they're just-
picture it.
they've-
It's kind of serial killer like.
Okay. Yeah. I'm picturing it. Yeah.
That's not on my list. That's just
true.
a personal
What's next on your list?
personal observation. We're going to talk about the mouth,
Oh, okay.
even though that is covered by a mask in a lot of cases now. But if you're in a Zoom meeting, you can definitely see the mouth. Or a Zoom party. It doesn't have to be a meeting. It can just be partying it up on a Saturday night with friends safely. Smiling is an important non-verbal cue. So there's lots of different types of smiles. Some are genuine, some are fake. So a genuine smile tends to engage your whole face, whereas the fake smile tends to only use your mouth. So I think about like...
I'm smiling.
But then I think about smizing for selfies, where people try to keep, smile only with their eyes and keep their
Yeah.
mouth in their duck lip pouch.
Well, I was just going to say, where does duck lips come into all this?
I don't have it on the list.
You didn't do any research for this, did you?
It's the pure aesthetics of the duck lips. So obviously a genuine smile means somebody's actually enjoying your company, whereas the fake smile is they're trying to convey pleasure or approval, but they actually don't feel that way at all. They're liars. Then there's the half smile. So this is when you have like only engages like one side of your mouth, and this can indicate sarcasm or uncertainty. I think about all of the emoticons too with the smiley faces, and there's definitely that the half smile one has
the old
been,
half smile. Like what you're saying is half funny. It's like, I don't know if I should fully smile or not.
It really took a long time for them to up the emoticon game. It used to be just smile, frown, and then I think flat and maybe the wow
devil
face or the
wasn't there the devil guy?
Maybe there was
red
the devil
face.
But it took a long
horns.
time for them to come up with like the sad and the laughing so hard I'm crying. That seems like very basic programming.
So that would be
they
like
should have had that available to us a long time ago.
Technological body language.
It is. You're right. But pretty obvious, I guess, what people are trying to imply with those.
I always do the winky thing so people don't, because I'll say something sarcastic and I'm like, I don't know how people is gonna, how this person's going to take this, so I better just do a wink, so you know that I'm just kidding.
I know, that's always the savior.
I do that all the time. Anyway.
You're a bleep, winky face.
Yeah.
All undone.
I really hate you, winky face.
Tight pursed lips can indicate displeasure. I think of like a, I don't know what
Like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't see Jeff, but he is pursing his lips and he looks displeased.
We'll do a thing on our Instagram of me doing it.
There you go. Kind of looks like you just ate a lemon.
Yeah.
But of course, if you're relaxed in your mouth,
What?
You also are relaxed in your body.
Yes.
Covering your mouth or touching your lips with your hands or fingers when speaking can indicate you're lying.
Really?
Or also that you just ate garlic and you're worried that you have stinky breath.
Well,
I decided that. Or that you also have bad COVID prevention skills because you're touching your mouth.
yeah.
Drink holding. If you are at a gathering and you're holding your drink lower, like by your hips, it tends to exude more confidence and you're more open and approachable. But people who are a little more shy will tend to sort of clutch their drink up by their chest.
Never really thought of that one.
I know.
I'm trying to think of what it is that I do. Do you know? You've seen me have a drink in my hand a lot. What do I do?
I don't know. Well, I think it's lower. I think women just clutch it by their chest and make sure they can see and make sure they're not getting roofied.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I don't know about that one.
Okay.
Pay attention to proximity. So if someone stands or sits next to you, obviously they tend to think of you more favorably. And if you just look at who's sitting next to whom, then yeah, that's definitely where the rapport is. On the other hand, sometimes people will back away as you move closer. Sometimes people are just really close talkers.
Yeah.
There's a Seinfeld episode on that.
We know some close talkers.
Right, and sometimes you just back away, not because you don't like people, but because they're just in your personal space.
Yeah.
And a personal space now is much larger than it used to be.
Here's a good question, though. Here's a good question, and it does relate to body language. How do you tell someone that you're not happy that they're a close talker?
I don't know.
How
That
do you
doesn't
do
relate.
that?
That's a whole different episode.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll do a whole episode on that then.
Yeah, how to have difficult conversations.
How to have difficult conversations.
Back up. I guess with all of that in terms of proximity, keep in mind that there are some cultural differences, even with, I guess, any of this body language. So
Oh yeah.
there are different cultures that just, they're more socially distanced for cultural reasons and not because, they don't like you.
Mm-hmm.
This is one I was aware of, and I often watch this, is mirroring. So if somebody is mimicking your body language, doing the same thing you're doing, it does tend to say that they like you or they want to develop that rapport. So it's kind of a trick to do if you're sitting at a table and you see someone rest an elbow on the table. You can wait 10 seconds to see if anybody else at the table does the same thing, because that can sometimes just indicate that they're trying to establish a rapport. So
little silent game of silence of Simon Says.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
It's almost a little creepy though if people do it excessively.
Hey, Charlie. Yeah.
So next time if you're in a large meeting or at a conference or something like that, just glance around at the tables and try to pick up on some of that body language. And if you think someone's trying to mirror you, just change your body posture really quickly and see if the other person does the same thing.
That's a good point.
Just start doing some really crazy things.
Fun little game.
Head movement. The speed at which someone nods their head when you're speaking can indicate their patience or lack thereof. So slow nodding means that they're interested in what you're saying and they want you to keep talking. But the fast nodding is like they're trying to rush you along. It's like they've heard enough and they want you to finish, wrap it up. If you think about that, it's like
I don't know if I agree with that, because it seems like sometimes when you get like some quick nodding when you're telling a story, it's like it means that the person's engaged. And they're like, yeah, okay, cool. Like I can see that. Okay, I'm following you. Yeah, what's, maybe they are like speeding you up a bit, but they're definitely engaged, I would say.
I guess if the topic of conversation, you have to take that into consideration. So if it's an exciting topic, then yeah, people probably will be shaking their head or nodding their head a little bit more. But if they're kind of going, yeah.
I can't stand that. Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay, get to the next. Yeah.
They could be trying to rush you along. If they're tilting their head sideways, it can also be a sign of interest. But if they tilt their head backward, it can mean that they're a bit suspicious or uncertain.
Or about to laugh.
Or sneeze. Back away. But if you think about when somebody does that, it's if you give them, I don't know, if you spout out a fact or tells a brief, anecdote, when they kind of look back a little bit and tilt their head backward, it does send the message that they may not really be believing fully what you just told them.
Interesting. I would never have thought that.
I notice it because I lie to people all the time. So I see this head tilt.
Yeah, you are quite a liar.
I know.
Everything you're saying, actually, all these are lies. None of these are true.
Let's talk about feet.
Feet.
Why it's important to talk about feet is because this is where a lot of people leak their important nonverbal cues. A lot of people are aware that they need to control their facial expressions, do that fake smile, or even, the whole idea of crossing your arms and that sort of thing, but they don't always pay attention to what their feet may be revealing.
No.
So, if somebody is standing or sitting, they'll generally point their feet in the direction they want to go. So this kind of, when we're talking about people wanting to leave, that's a big piece of it. But also, if you're sort of standing in a circle, people will tend to point their feet toward the people that they're most interested in.
That they're most connected to. So
that's
interesting.
They've got like a slight turn towards the people they feel.
I'm going to have to pay attention to some of these things, because I've been in these situations before, but never really paid attention to people's feet.
Charlie's got a lot to say in this episode.
Charlie, he's quite vocal.
He's our cat, and he's getting older, and with age comes a lot more vocals.
He's got a hyperthyroid now, which is not fun.
It's not. Medication twice a day.
Medication twice a day, yeah.
Cat life. All right. So ladders.com had a really interesting article on body language, and specifically around the idea of negotiation. So they reference this. There's a book called How to Read a Person Like a Book.
Oh.
And the author said that the number of times settlements were reached increased greatly when both of the negotiators had uncrossed legs. In fact, they looked at 2,000 videotaped transactions. Not one resulted in a settlement when even one of the negotiators had his or her legs crossed.
Wow.
So I guess
even in the casual cross,
manspreading, I guess, says you're more open to negotiation. I don't know.
Because there's two different ways to cross your legs when you're sitting, right? There's that delicate one, and then there's the other one that's almost like a triangle.
The delicate one.
Like the delicate one where you kind of just like, you put it over your knee, you put your other leg over your knee, and you just let it dangle.
Or the one where your foot is sort of on your opposite knee. I think that's just a matter of what people can actually do with their legs. Some people just feel more comfortable in one position or the other. But the idea is that if you have your legs crossed in any way, you're not as open to negotiation as if you have them uncrossed. So if you are negotiating something important, don't cross your legs.
But don't mansplain. Don't.
Yeah, the manspreading is just obnoxious.
Yeah.
Watch for hand signals. Whether people are putting their hands in their pocket or they're putting their hands on their head can indicate nervousness or outright lies. Sometimes people are just, making gestures in certain direction, and they may unconsciously be gesturing towards people that they are more interested in. This next one, I kind of think about kids in class. If they're supporting their head with their hand and they're resting one elbow on the table,
Yep.
then it can kind of indicate that they're maybe a little bit disinterested. But if they've got both elbows on the table and both hands supporting their head, it can mean that they're very interested in what's being said. I don't see a lot of adults doing that type of position, but I think kids in class, if you sort of think about them just resting their head, it's almost like they're half asleep. But if they have both elbows on the table.
Wouldn't you say, though, that if they had no elbows on the table, they would be very interested?
Yes. But this section was all about the elbows.
All right. What if they had 10 elbows on the table? They're about to fall asleep?
Palms down indicates a gesture of power, whereas palms up are more of a being open or submissive. Again,
it's more welcoming.
With TED Talks, or if you're watching your next TED Talk or public presentation, a lot of times public speakers consciously do that. Where if you think of like dictators and things like that, they tend to have their palms
Fists.
down. Well, then there's the fists.
Are there TED Talks on body language? Did you check that out? Did you look to see if there was?
Oh yeah, there's a ton of TED Talks on body language and all kinds of things. So if you don't get enough from our episode, Google them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, crossed arms definitely can indicate, being blocked off. It can also just be anxiety or vulnerability.
Cold.
So
Sometimes people do it because they're
That's
cold.
definitely right. So with any of these, sort of think about the environment, because they could absolutely just be cold. So don't always take things to be, sort of look at the overall context of what these gestures or body language cues may be, involved in. So if somebody's genuinely laughing and smiling, but they have their hands in their pockets, then that probably doesn't mean, that
Before
they're not
you did all the
genuinely
research
happy.
for this podcast, did you pay attention to body language much? Did you?
I did. We sort of started out the episode with that question.
Oh, okay. What was the answer? This shows how much
The
I pay
answer was that
attention.
you weren't paying attention. You were showing disinterest in my answer.
I was not. Did you notice
No,
my
I
arms were crossed and my legs were crossed? Everything was crossed.
So yeah, ignoring context. Yeah, the answer was from the beginning of the episode that I know I definitely do pay attention to body language. I think it's an important part of any interaction and communication.
Okay.
Also consider someone's baseline behavior. If somebody's always jumpy and high energy, then that's probably not an indication of anything more than their personality type.
Yeah.
But if they suddenly slow down, then pay attention. There may be something going on there. One of the things that I guess are sort of the cluster of cues that you should be looking are sort of hand touching, face touching, crossing arms, leaning away. Those are all things that let you know how people feel about you and who you should trust and who you should not.
The overall placement of your entire body when you talk to somebody too, right? I mean, we know we covered that a little bit, but whether or not your face, you're straight on somebody when you're talking, or you're, like you said, we tend to veer towards the way in which we want to escape from that person talking.
Well, even posture, shoulders back means that people are usually more confident.
Yeah.
When they're a little bit hunched over, it can mean that they're shy or lack confidence or uncomfortable. And even how somebody walks. There are people who walk purposely with purposefulness, and they're just high intensity walkers. Again, that can show that they are, a little bit more engaged, a little more confident. So you have to take all of these into, to get the entire picture. But I found it interesting. I think there's some tells that, that hopefully were enlightening for our listeners. And the takeaway is that, all the clues are far from perfect, particularly in the time of us all wearing masks. But, being masked up so pay attention to the eyes and wear your mask.
Wear your masks, people.
Can't say that enough.
Yes.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time on InfoQuench Podcast.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening.
And remember, you can catch up on past episodes at infoquench.com.
Or just about anywhere else you get your podcasts.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
And help spread the word about InfoQuench.
Till next time.